All right, why do flies always bring their stopwatches to parties? Again, we're looking at the number line, but we're looking at different parts of the number line. For instance, 3 units to the left of 0. When we look at a number line, we always start at 0, just like the coordinate plane. We always start at 0. When we go to the right, are we going positive or negative? Positive. So positive is to the right, and we go to the left, we're going negative. So if we go 3 units to the left of 0, 1, 2, 3, what number is that? Negative 3. So we went to negative 3, and the letter is E. And that's how straightforward this one is. But let's look at some other things, such as, what is a deposit? If you go to the bank and you make a deposit, what happens to your bank account? If you make a deposit, did your bank account get bigger or smaller? Bigger. It gets bigger. So we're going to go positive 20, that's your deposit, and we're going to do the letter N. Okay? Now let's look at a couple other things. The letter I here, it has one of these negative 14. Now one of the things I use is if I see this, negative is so confusing. So one of the things I like to use is the opposite of negative 14. What's the opposite of negative 14?
Positive 14.
Oh, that would be positive 14. So there it is. There's 14 there, and it's the letter I. Now we have these railroad track things. What are those called? Yes?
Absolute value.
The absolute value. So we have absolute value. And I could have negative 3. I could have positive 3. What does absolute value refer to? What is it, Nikki?
The distance between 0 and the number.
The distance between 0 and the number. So absolute value talks about distance. And whenever you talk about distance, can it be negative?
No.
I mean, if I walk backwards, I just went backwards. Is that a negative number? No, because I still went somewhere.
Always positive.
It's always positive. So absolute value is the distance from 0. So when we go for 0, from 0, so if I go the absolute value, the distance from 0 is 3, it would have to still be 3. What about the absolute value of negative 3? It still has to be 3. So here, the absolute value of negative 1 has to be 1. So there it is, 1, and that letter is E also.
What if the negative is on the outside of the absolute?
Oh, absolute value, good question. What if the negative is on the outside of the absolute value? Absolute value is a grouping symbol. Therefore, if it's on the outside, solve what's inside, 3, and then do what's outside, negative 3. So it's the opposite of whatever the absolute value is. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Good. It's a grouping symbol. Yes. Like there's a couple down here. You guys will get it. Okay. What about one like this? Which is greater, 2 or negative 13? You're in algebra now. No more alligators. So let's look at this. 2, negative 13. All right. Think of this. Look at the vertical number line instead, knowing that 0 is the ground. The minute you go negative, you're digging a hole. Which one's smaller? Negative 13, because it's underground, right?
Yeah.
When you have to dig that hole, you've got to be smaller, right? Or deeper. You can think of it that way. When you're writing your inequality sign, the smaller number gets the smaller side. So is the smaller side the open side or the closed side? Which one's smaller? The open side or the closed side?
The clothes.
The closed side. So it would be like this. This is asking which is greater, 2 or 13? Which side is greater or larger?
2.
2. Okay, so n goes with 2. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Greater than or equal to, greater than, less than. If it's smaller, it must be less than. If it's bigger, it must be greater than. We all have them built in. We also have right angles built in. Okay? Are we good?
Yes.
Pretty straightforward?
Yes.
Excellent.